Hello there, welcome to Let's Analyze with IRAT, and in today's video I'll be taking you through a Power BI training. If you have zero knowledge about Power BI, this will be a great platform for you to learn, because this training is starting from beginners to pro, so you won't have a problem learning this course. In today's lesson, you'll be acting the role of a data analyst at a retail store. I have the data set right here with me, and if you would like to follow along, you can download the data set using the link in the description below. You can also download the Power BI desktop using the link in the description below, because we'll be using the Power BI desktop in the course of this program. In today's lesson, we'll cover the overview of Power BI, Power Query Editor, data modeling, DAX, and data visualization. We won't be dwelling on Power BI service in this lesson. Since we are playing the role of a data analyst, we've been provided the data set. Now the CEO and the CMO has given us a list of questions we'll be answering with this data set. Let me just share my screen to show you the list of questions. Question of interest from the CEO is: the CEO is interested in knowing which region is generating the highest revenue and which region is generating the least revenue. The CEO is also interested in what the monthly trend of revenue is and which month has faced the highest or biggest increase or decrease. The CEO is also interested in which month generates the most profit and is there a seasonality in the sales. The CEO is also interested in knowing who our top customer is and how much have they contributed to the total revenue. We also have questions from the CMO. We have a list of questions from the CMO where the CMO is asking to know what total revenue is produced this year. He's also interested in knowing the total profit by quarter and the total customers by month. You would like to know if the customers are increasing, if the number of customers we have every month is increasing or not. The CMO is also interested in the products with the highest sales and is also interested in us giving him a recommendation from our analysis. Back to our slide. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll be giving an overview of Power BI. After every section, I'll give you a list of questions you need to answer just to make sure you're following. You don't really need to give me the answer, but do it within yourself and just task yourself with the questions. So now, what is Power BI? Power BI is a Microsoft Business Intelligence product which is used to analyze and share insights. It includes the Power BI desktop, the web-based application for loading, modeling, and visualizing data. Now, there are different products of Power BI. We have the Power BI desktop. And the Power BI desktop is a free application that can be installed on your local computer. Like I mentioned earlier, for this course, we'll be using the Power BI desktop. So if you haven't downloaded it, please download it using the link in the description below. Now, the Power BI desktop is completely free to use as long as you've installed it into your local computer. It lets you get data from multiple sources. You can transform the data into a clean workable sheet. You can create data models and create a fine looking report. We also have the Power BI service. With the Power BI service, you can share reports and dashboards with your co-workers and other stakeholders. It allows you to create your own workspace, and it allows you to create within the workspace. You can collaborate with different development. You can collaborate with different data analysts or different people that are interested in the reports. You can also create data flows in your Power BI service. It allows you in your Power BI service, you can transform the data set. However, you cannot create or amend the data models in your Power BI service. While in your Power BI desktop, you can transform your data, you can create data models and create reports. We also have the Power BI report server. The Power BI report server is an on-premises report server that can host Power BI reports, Excel files, paginated reports, and so on. It also comes with a web portal where you can display your reports or your KPIs. KPI means key performance indicator. We also have the Power BI mobile. With the Power BI mobile, you can view all your reports and dashboards that you create, whether they're on premises or they're in the cloud. The Power BI mobile is available both on iOS or Android or Windows device. Once you launch your Power BI desktop, this is the first interface that will be displayed to you. You can get data, you can view the previous sources you've worked with. If you are just downloading the Power BI desktop, you won't have previous sources. You can go ahead to remove this. Now this is what the Power BI interface looks like. In the upper left corner, you can see some tabs where you have the File tab, Home tab, Insert tab, Modeling tab, Views tab, and the Help tab. I'll be talking about each of these tabs very soon, but let's talk about other interfaces. There are 3 core views in the Power BI desktop. If we look at this, okay, let me use this to show it better. These are the 3 core views in your Power BI desktop. We have the report view, the data view. Here we are presently on the report view. We have the data view. Because we don't have any data imported, it's completely plain. But once we import our data, this is where we get to see our data in a tabular format. We also have the model view. This is where we create data models and create relationships. So we have 3 core views. The report view, where we create visualizations. We have the data view, where we see our data in a tabular format. And we also have the model view, where we create data models and relationships. In the report view, we have 3 panes: filter pane, visualization pane, and the field pane. In the visualization pane, we can see all the relevant configuration. Let me use this to show it better. In the visualization pane, you can see all the visuals that are relevant and their relevant configuration options. This can be found in the visualization pane. We also have the filter pane. In the filter pane, you can configure a new filter and update existing filters. We also have the fields pane. In the fields pane, this contains all the tables in your data set, and it basically contains all the tables in your data set or your data model and their respective fields of their columns. And let's move back to the tabs. We are presently in the Home tab. The Home tab in the ribbon menu contains various subsets that provides options to help you with your report creation or your publishing. We also have the Insert tab. In your Insert tab, this tab of the ribbon menu contains all the options related to adding new components into your reports. So if you want to add an image, add anything you want to add basically, You can use this, you can import this using the Insert tab. We also have the Modeling tab. This tab contains all options related to data modeling. So it's basically for the data model. We also have the Views tab. The Views tab contains options related to the user's interface. So if you want to change the color themes, you can use it in the Views tab. If you want to change to a mobile layout, basically for related to the user's interface. You also have the Help tab. This contains multiple sources where you can get help from, like training videos from Microsoft, Power BI blogs, Power BI communities, and so on. Now, how can we import data into your Power BI desktop? For this course, we'll be provided an Excel file and which is formatted. We have the CSV file and we have an Excel file. How can we import this data into your Power Query Editor or into your Power BI? In the Home tab, you can use either your Get Data option or your Transform option. If you click on the Get Data option, you see different data sources available. When you click on more, you can see it in a bigger format. There are several types of data connectors. Power BI connects with virtually any type of data source. You can connect with this data source by clicking on the Get Data option in the Home tab. And now you can see you can connect with Excel workbook, CSV, XML, JSON, folders, PDF, basically almost every source, every data source. For the course of this lesson, we'll be importing from an Excel workbook. So I'll be selecting Excel workbook and select connect. Because I've already downloaded this file, I can go ahead and select it, which is AW sample, and I would open. So basically, there are several sheets in this Excel file. It's left for me to check or select the ones I want to be displayed in Power BI. So I want to get the sales facts table. This will give you a preview of what the table looks like to be sure this is the table you want. Check that. I also want the territory dimension table. I'll check that as well. Territory dimension table 2, check that. And the product dimension table, I'll also check that. So we have an option to either load or transform data. If I click on load, this will directly import the data into Power BI desktop without moving me through, without making me pass through the Power Query Editor. But if I still want to transform or clean the data, I would need to select the Transform Data option. If I select the Transform Data option, I'll be taken to the Power Query Editor, which is where I can make transformation or clean my data set. I'll be selecting the Transform Data option. I am now in the Power Query Editor. You can see the title, Power Query Editor. Now this is a different interface. It's connected with Power BI, but it's a completely different interface. Now before I start, I would like to explain more about the interface so we'll get familiar with it. Let me use my arrows to show. Now we have the formula bar. This is where the Power Query editor has a formula language, which is the M code. Power BI will automatically write this M code for you. You don't really need to be writing M codes in your Power Query editor. It's only if you're familiar with it and you're good at it, you can write it, but you don't really need to use it. This is where the M code is being written. We also have the queries pane. Now the queries pane is where we have all the tables that are available for this data set. Now you see we imported the sales facts table, we imported the territory dimension table and the product dimension table. This is where you get to see all the tables that are available in this data set. We also have the query setting pane. Now all the steps performed on this data are recorded. They are recorded here. You can see, you would see once we start transforming the data, you'll be seeing the steps in your query settings. So for every step you make when cleaning or transforming this data, you would see the step in your query settings pane. And we also have the ribbon menu. The ribbons menu contains tabs with various options to help you in your data cleaning and your transformation. The three essential tabs that I use for in data transformation and data cleaning is your Home tab, Transform tab, and your Add column tab. These are the three essential tabs that I use in transforming the data. Now, the Home tab includes the general settings and common table transformation tools. The Transform tab can be used to modify existing column. Now, it can be used to modify existing column. This is the Transform tab. The Add column tab can be used to create a new column based on maybe certain conditions. Now, if you look at the Transform tab and the Add column tab, they have a lot of things in common. But once we start transforming the data, we'll explain more about the Home, the Transform, and the Add column tab. If you notice, you'd see we have some let me just show you using this. You see we have some numbers or some icons next to the column header. These are called data types. And if we click on it, you see a list of different data types that are available in your Power Query editor. The first set for data type is the number data type, where you have percentage, whole number, fixed decimal number, which is mostly used for currency, and we have decimal numbers. We also have the date time data type. This is the date time data type is used for a column that contains date and time. The date data type is used for a column that contains date alone, and the time is data type is used for columns that contains time alone. We also have the text data type, which is used for text values that contains letters. We also have the boolean, which is true or false. This is used for columns that contain just true and false options. If you notice, for this, because it contains both text and numbers, we have the data type to be formatted as a text data type. We also have for this product key, this contains numbers alone. It's formatted as a whole number. If you take a look at this total product cost, this is formatted as a decimal number. You can also change it to a fixed decimal number. So let's change this data type to a fixed decimal number. Add a new step. Now if you take a look at this applied step, you'd notice a new step has been applied. Now what if we want to undo the step, like we're no longer interested in this step, we want to take it back, or we made a mistake when taking this step? You can go ahead to cancel using the X icon. If you click on the X icon, you notice the data type is back to the decimal point. If you want to make the step again, we can go ahead to change the data type. So now we want to change the data type back to a fixed decimal number. Select fixed decimal number, add a new step, and you see the step has been added in your applied steps. But what if we mistakenly close out the query settings pane? How do we get it back? Let's take for instance, we close the query settings pane. How do we get it back? In the views tab, just select query settings right here. Once you click on it, you see it's back up. Good. So back to what I was saying, for the data type, also change that of sales amount to fixed decimal number, which shows that it's a currency. You see this, the ship date that contains date value is formatted as a date. When we take a look at this data set, you'd notice the first two rows contains empty cells, which is provided with null values. So how do we get to delete these empty cells? If you go to your Homes tab, you see the options where you can keep row or remove rows. In this case, we want to remove rows. So you select the remove rows options, and you'll be given different options to select. Either you want to remove the top row, bottom row, or you want to remove duplicates or remove blank rows. In this case, we want to remove top rows because these two rows are at the top. So select remove top rows. And Power BI will ask you, how many rows do you want to delete? Do you want us to delete the first row alone? Just give us a specific number so I would delete it. So that is what Power BI will be asking you. In this case, we want to delete just the first two rows. So you would write impute to and click on OK. You see the first two rows have been deleted. And now when we look at the applied step, you'd see the step has been written down, which is remove top rows. What if we want to remove a column, like in this case, where we have a column that's containing empty cells? How do we get to remove it? Just click on the cell. Just click on the column rather. And in your Homes tab, you'd see an option where you can keep, choose, or remove column. You can click on remove column and select the remove column option. Before you select the remove column option, be sure you are selecting the column that you want to remove. So remove column option. The step has been added to your applied step. Now you'll notice there's a change in colors. I mean, under the column header, you notice this is appearing as ash, deep ash, while this is not appearing as deep ash. Now if you move your cursor above this line, you would see an interface which shows you the name of the data of the column, which is the column header, which is column 1. It shows the number of the percentage of empty cells, which shows that every cell in this column is empty. If you want to have a better view of it, you can go to your Views tab and select either column quantity. This shows you more like a summary of what each column is. So when you click on column quantity, when you check this, it shows you like the amount of valid values in the column, the amount of errors in the column, and the amount of empty cells in the column. If we look at this other dates key, we see that 100% of the values in the column is valid. While when you look at the column 1 column, you see they have just 0%. It has just 0% valid value, while it has 100% empty value. It shows that the value is empty, so it's of no use. We should delete it. If you also want to see like the column profile or the column distribution, just like we did for the column quantity, you can check this in the views tab. You can see the column distribution. You can also see the columns profile. The column profile would show you the column statistics, and this is based on the 1000 rows that is being previewed in your Power Query editor. The Power Query editor doesn't give you a preview of all the data sets. It just gives you a preview of 1000 data sets, 1000 rows. So if you want this statistics is usually based on the 1000 rows that is being previewed. If you want to see based on the entire row, you can just click on this and change it to column profiling based on the entire data set. So now you can see the statistics, where you have the count of the values in the column to be 22,605, the minimum value, the maximum value, average, the standard deviation, and all of that. Let's uncheck this column profile because it's taking a lot of space. You can uncheck the column distribution as well, and the column quantity. So let's take, for instance, we want to delete the other date key, column 1 and due date keys together at a time, at a stretch. You can do this by using your shift key. When you click on the first column, click on your shift key and select the last column you want to delete. So you click on the shift key and select your due date key. Now, instead of using the home tab to remove columns, you can just right click with your cursor on the header. You can just right click to remove columns. Select remove columns. Now the columns have been deleted from the table. We also have an empty cell right here in the territory dimension table. You can go ahead and delete that. Remove, right click, remove. Product dimension and territory dimension. Now if you look at this territory dimension too, you'd notice that the first row is supposed to be the column header. So how can we move the first row from being the first row to the column header? In the Homes tab, you would see an option which is use first row as header. When you click on that, you see the first row has been used as the header, just as it should be. Let's take, for instance, you are in the Power Query editor and you need to import more data sets. How can you import this data set without going back to your Power BI desktop? You can do this by using the new source option right in the Homes tab. New source option. This works just like the get data option, where you get to see a list of sources where you can get your data from. Select more. We'll be trying to import from a CSV file. So select a CSV. Instead of Excel workbook, select a CSV and click on connect. I've downloaded the CSV file as well. So I want to import the customer dimension for female and customer dimension for male. But you can only do that one after the other. So I would import that of female first. Click on OK. I would also import that of a male text file. And click on OK. So that is how you can import new sources or import more sources into your Power Query editor. Now, how can you add index that add numbers from 1, 2, 3 in a sequential order? How can you add an index into your into your table? You can do that in the Add Column tab. Because we are trying to add a new column, you'll be using the Add Column tab, and you'd see an option which says Index Column. Now, looking at the arrow next to it, it gives you an option to either start your index from 1 or start from 0. In this case, we want to start our index from 1. So select 1. And now the index has been imported into this table. Now we can rename the column header by double-clicking on the column header. And we need to change this to, let's say, territory, group, ID. If you look at the transform tab, you would see that we have functions that are available for text column, functions that are available for number columns, and functions that are available for dates and time columns. If you also look at the Add Column tab, you'd see functions that are available for text, for numbers, and for dates and time column. These two tabs work, the functions in these two tabs works more like the same, but there's a difference. When you use the Transform tab, you can only transform the existing column you selected. But if you use the Add Column tab, it creates a new column containing the value that you want, containing the result of your condition. So let's take, for instance, we want to let's use the ship date. So let's take, for instance, we want to extract the month's name from this ship date. If we use your Transform tab, if you use the date and time function in your Transform tab, you see what will happen. Let me show you real quick. In your Transform tab, select your date, and in this case we want to get the month's name, so name of month, and click on it. Now you'd see the selected column which you picked has changed, is now giving us the value we want, but we've lost the column that was there before. We've lost the ship date column. Now we only have the month's name column. We don't have the ship date column anymore because we selected this column and we used the date function using the Transform tab. But let me show you what will happen if we use the Add Column tab. Let me just reverse this. When you use the Add Column tab and you select the date function, we want to extract the name of month. You'll see that a new column has been created which contains the month's name, and we still have the ship date. We still have the ship date column, and we now have a new column which contains the ship date month name. So basically, the functions in the Add Column tab creates a new column containing the values that is being extracted, while the Transform tab works on the existing column that you select. So let's rename this to ship month's name. Aside the ship month, aside the month name, you can also extract other dates values. Like a year, you can extract the year. You can extract the start of month. You can extract quarter, start of quarter, end of quarter, or quarter of the year. Let's extract quarter of the year. Selecting the shift, let me rename this to ship quarter. You can also extract day, that's the name of the day. You can extract the day of the year, the start of the end of the day of the week. Let's extract name of day. So this tells us that it's on a Tuesday, Friday, Thursday, Friday. I should name this to shipment day, ship day name. Or name. You can explore all of these date functions using your own dataset. You can explore all of these date functions, and if you notice, when I select a column that is not formatted as a date and I click on the date function, you'd notice most of these functions are not highlighted. But when I select a date column, you'd notice the date functions have been highlighted. The same thing goes for the numbers and text. Now, how can you merge two columns together? Let's take, for instance, you have the full first name and the first last name of a customer, and you want to merge those two columns together. How can you do that? You can do that with your merge column option. Now, just like we have for the date function, we have the merge column option both in the transform tab and in the add column tab. If you use the merge column option in the transform tab, you'd have the existing column to be merged together. You won't have a new column to be created. So let me just do that so you'd see it again. In this case, we want to merge the territory country and the territory group together. Now, if you look at the transform tab, this is where we have the merge column option. But the merge column option is not highlighted. Why? This is because we have just one column selected. Now, Power BI won't merge a single column. To merge a column, it has to be two or more. So before we have the merge column option highlighted, we need to select two columns. Now you can use your shift key. When you hold your shift key, you can click on any other column header. So I want to click on the territory country and territory group. Now if you notice, the merge column option has now been highlighted. And when we click on it, remember we're in the transform tab. I want you to see what would happen. Now to ask for a separator, do you want a comma to be the separator, a space, a tab, a semicolon, or you want to create a custom separator? Now the custom separator means, let me show you. Let's say in a case where you want to use slash as the separator. Now if you look at the options that were provided for us, we don't have slash. So we can create a custom column, a custom separator where we would use slash. Now we can rename this column from merged to, let's just say, demo, because we are just trying to demonstrate merge column option. Now we can see we have the two columns merged together using the slash as a separator. But we no longer have the two columns present anymore because we used the merge column option in the transform tab. So what if we use the merge column option in the add column tab? Let me reverse this so you can see. Now we select this two columns. We're in the add column tab. We select merge columns option. Our separator, let's use a custom separator just like we used, and let's use a slash. Let's rename this to add column demo. Now you'd see we still have the two existing columns, and we now have a new column that contains the extracted value. Now, how can we split these two tables without reversing in the applied step? Let's say we don't have access to undo using the applied step. How can we split this single column into two? Now, when you select the column we want to split and you click on the transform tab, this option is not present in the add column tab. Click on split column. Now if you click on the drop down, you see an option to either split by delimiter or split by number of characters, split by position, or split by uppercase to lowercase, or digits to non-digits. Different options basically. In this case, we want to split by delimiter, and our delimiter in this case is the slash. PowerBI has automatically detected what the delimiter is because we only have one delimiter in the option, in the column, which is slash. It will ask you at what point do you want us to split this column, because in some cases where you have more than one occurrence of this slash, how many times or when exactly do you want us to splash it? PowerBI split it rather. PowerBI will be asking at what point do you want us to split these two columns. You can use either the leftmost delimiter, that's when you have more than one delimiter. You can use the rightmost delimiter, or you can split at each occurrence of the delimiter. Now click on OK. You can see that the single column has now been separated into two different columns. Now we are back to the same result we had earlier. Let me just undo this. Good. I just use that as an example just so you know we can do all of this using the Power Query editor. You can also extract value. So now in some cases we just explained how you can merge two columns, how you can split them. Now how can you extract values? When we select the column, you can either use it in your transform tab or your add column tab. If you use in transform tab, it works exactly just like every other function, where when you use in the transform tab, it affects the selected column, and when you use in the add column tab, it creates a new column containing the extracted value. When you click on the column you want, in the add column tab, select extract from the text functions. Now when you click on the drop down, it will ask you what exactly do you want to extract. You want to extract length, you want to extract text before a delimiter or text after a delimiter. In this case, we want to extract length. So basically what this does is it calculates the numbers of the letters in the value in each cell. Now when we look at the territory group column, if you count the numbers of alphabet or letters in the word Europe, you'd see that the length is equal to 6. This is when you want to extract the numbers of letters or the numbers of values in a column. So let's say we want to extract a particular number of characters. You can select the extract and extract first character. Now to ask how many characters do you want us to extract, starting from the beginning. Like I mentioned, we want to extract the first 5 letters. So select 5, input 5 rather. When you click on OK, you see the first 5 letters is being extracted as the first number, as the first character. Now, if you actually wanted to use this for something important, you can just rename this, but I'm just using it as a demo just to show that we can do this using Power Query Editor. You can also extract values from the end. So let's see, we want to extract last character. We want to extract the last 3 characters. Input 3 as a count. You see it extracted the last 3 characters starting from the end of the values. Let's just take this out because we don't need them. I'm just using them as an example. You can also change the format of the values in your column. Let's take, for instance, you want to format the values in your territory country. You want to format them to uppercase. You don't want to see everything as a capitalized each word. You have this function both in your transform tab and your add column tab. Let's use this function in the transform tab. So let's say we want to change the format of each value in the column to uppercase. You see all the values in this column now appears to be an uppercase. I want every one of us to understand these 2 features that are available in the Power Query Editor, which is the merging queries option and the appending queries option. Now, the merging queries allows you to merge 2 tables that have a column, common column side by side. Now, merging queries add columns to an existing table, and you cannot delete the tables after merging. I want us to look at the diagram that appears below. This shows 2 different tables. We have the one that is not colored and we have the one that is colored. When you merge these queries, you'd have the 2 tables side by side. Now, appending queries. Appending queries allows you to combine or stack tables that share the exact same structure and the exact same data type. Appending queries allows you to add rows into an existing table, but you cannot delete any of the tables that have already been appended. Now, if you look at this diagram below, you would see 2 tables. When you append these 2 queries, they will be stacked on each other, while merging queries will be added side by side. I want to show you how you can do all of this in the Power Query Editor. Let's use the customers dimension. Let's start with appending queries. Let's say we want to append the 2 customers dimension into one table instead of having them in a separate table, since they come with the exact same structure and exact same data type. In the Homes tab, you can see the merge query where you can combine files. You see the merge query and the append query option. If you click on the drop down, it will ask you if you want to append query or you want to append as new. Append as new basically means it will create a new table containing the appended values, while the append query to append the query in the selected table. So let's say we want to append as new. It will ask us, do we want to concatenate 2 tables or 2 or more tables? In this case, we just want to use 2 tables, which is our customer dimension for female and customer dimension table for male. So the first table is the female because we selected that. The second table is the male. And click on OK. Now we'll see, if we look at the gender, since it's gender we use to differentiate the tables. If we look at the gender, click on load more, you'd see we have for female and we also have for male, meaning these two tables have been added together. Now you can rename this to customer dimension. Now since we don't need these two tables anymore, let's go ahead to delete them. We are unable to delete this table because it's being referenced by another query. This is the disadvantage of appending queries using this method. There's a better method of appending queries. Now let me show you how you can append queries using the folder option. Let's delete this real quick. Let's delete the customer's dimension. And I want us to go to wherever you saved your file. Now to do this, what you will do is create a new folder. And let's name this folder customer dimension. So the two tables we want to append, let's move them to your customer dimension folder. Yes. Okay, so now we've created a folder and we've inserted our customer dimension tables into this folder. So now what we'll do is insert a new import a new source, and this new source in this case will be the folder. It will be the folder we created. Okay, so we are importing a new source, which will be a folder. I'll select that and click on connect. So we'll browse the file, which will be, so these are the two CSV files that are inside that folder. Now PowerBI would ask us, do we want to combine these two tables, these two files together, or do we want to transform it as an individual file? In this case, since we want to append, we'll combine and transform the file. Click on combine and transform. And click on OK. You'd see that the file has now been imported into Power Query Editor, where you have the source name and every other value. To be sure these tables have been appended, let's check through the gender. We need to see that there's a female and a male. This shows us that the data has been imported. The reason I'm using gender is because we know the two tables are separately for each gender. We have the female for the female gender. We have a table for the female gender and the male gender. So when we combine, we are expected to see both genders in the gender column. That's why I'm using the gender. If it's a case where you have maybe a sales table from maybe year 2020 and sales table from 2021, you can use the dates to check or to confirm if the two tables have been appended. So now in this case, we can delete these two tables because they are not directly connected to this table. Now when we go to our customer dimension table, I want us to notice a change. This is a product dimension table that is free from error. Now look at the customer dimension table. You'll see a red and white line that's appearing below each column header. This is because the file path is now different from the file path that was initially created. So when you want to save your files into your computer, make sure it's in a safe place where you don't have to be changing the locations. Since we don't need the customer dimension for female and male anymore, we can just go ahead to delete the two of them. Now we have access to delete them since we are not using them to reference any other table. So basically, when you want to append your queries, it's best to create a folder, insert all your files into the folder using the folder option. So we don't need the source name. We can go ahead to delete that. Right click and remove. So basically, I want us to change the territory dimension to table into the territory group table. So we can go ahead to delete this territory country. We don't need it. Let's remove that. And the territory group ID as well. Remove. So let's remove duplicates so we can only have unique or distinct value. Now we have the three distinct value. And let's insert an index which will act as the primary key from 1, and let's rename this to territory group, territory group ID. I'm going to talk about how we can merge queries soon, but I want us to talk about number functions first. Now let's go to our sales facts table. This is where we have most of our numerical data. When we select a number value, you notice in the transform tab or in the add column tab, you notice some functions popped up, like the statistics function, the standard function, scientific function, trigonometry, rounding, and information. If you also look at the transform tab, you notice we have the statistics functions popping up, where you can see the sum of values in a particular column. You can see the minimum, maximum. The statistical functions actually helps us to explore the data set. Let's say in the case where we just want to know how many values are inside this column, or let's say we want to get the sum of cost in this particular column. You can use the transform tab in your statistics, select sum. You obviously need your data set. You just want to see what the value is. So after seeing it, you'd of course go back, undo, since we now know what the value is. In transform tab, as first, let's say we want to know the average product cost. You can also select the average. This gives you the average value. You can round this up. So let's take this out. So let's say we want to round up to 2 decimal places. Click on OK. So basically, this is just showing you more about the data set. Let's say, for instance, we want to add, multiply, subtract, or get a percentage of something, of a number. You can use this in your using your standard function. Now, this function is available both in the transform tab and in the add column tab. In this case, we'll be trying to get the profit, and the profit is the subtraction of the sales amount from the product cost. So how can we get the profit? We can subtract these two values using the standard function. Don't forget to select the standard in your add column tab and not your transform tab. So we've selected our sales amount, which we want to subtract from, and select subtract. Now to ask us, do you want to subtract from a value, or you want to subtract from a particular column. So in this case, we want to subtract from a particular column, which is the product cost. We want to subtract the sales amount from the product cost to get our profit. Now, instead of having value, just click on the drop down. We want to use value in a column. Go ahead to click on the drop down and select your product cost and click on OK. Now the value has been given, which is a subtraction of the sales amount from the product cost. Let's rename this to profit. Let's move this close to it so we can see it side by side. Now if we look at this using our calculator, just by looking at it, you can see that this is the subtraction. The values here is the subtraction of the sales amount from the product cost. This can be done using the number function. You can also add values. You can also multiply, subtract, divide, use modulos. And I want us to notice this. When you subtract from the add column tab, you get to see an option to either pick from a value or use a value in a column. But if you pick from, if you try to subtract using the standard in the transform tab, you would only have access to pick a value. You would have access to pick from a different column. You can also group and aggregate in your Power BI Power Query editor, just like we have in pivot table. Let's say we want to have the total profit by the territory key. You can do this using your group by option. Let's select group by in the transform tab. Select the group by option, and we are trying to group the territory key. And we want to get the sum of the profits. Let's rename this to total profit or sum of profits. And you click on OK. You can now see that this, let's change the data type. Okay. You can now see that this is grouping. It's summing up the profit and it's grouping it based on the territory key. Now we look at territory key 1. Let's do this in descending order, so we have the highest profit. You can see that the territory key 9 has the highest profit, or it made the highest profit. And the territory key 5 made the least profit with just $99.57. So that is how you can group by as well. Let's just take this back since we don't need it. It's just for the example. Let's say, for instance, we want to create a conditional column where you have when the yearly income is less than 50,000, then the result should be low income. When the yearly income is between 50,000 to 100,000, then it should be an average income. When the yearly income is above 100,000, then it should be high income. How can we do that using Power Query Editor? Now, if we select the column, in the Add Column tab, you can select conditional. You can use the conditional column option. And when you click on conditional column, this brings an interface where you input the values you want. So let's rename this column to income range. This is the name of the new column we'll be creating. If the yearly income, which is what we want to use in this case, it asks for the operator. If the yearly income is less than or equal to 50,000, then the value should be low income. So you can add new clause in case you have more conditions you want to impute. Add new clause. If the yearly income is less than or equals to 100,000, yes, then it should be average income. Add new clause. If the yearly income is greater than, because any other value above 100,000 yearly income is high income. So if the yearly income is greater than 100,000, then the output should be high income. Click on OK. Let's take this side by side. Let's take it to yes. So now when you look at the yearly income and you look at the income range, where you have the yearly income to be lesser than or equal to 50,000, you see the income range will be equal to low income. And we also give a condition where if the income is if it's less than or equal to $10,000, $100,000 rather, it should be average income. And when you see the value that is above $100,000, you'd see that the income range being displayed, the output is in high income, because 150,000 is above 100,000. It doesn't only work for for number values alone. You can also use it for text values or date values. Before we go, we shouldn't forget to remove duplicates. Remove duplicates. I'm still going to talk about how we can merge queries. I just want us to talk more about types of tables before I come back to that. And we can go ahead to remove duplicates from all the tables, just to be sure we don't have duplicates in any table. Selecting the entire table, of course. Selecting the entire column in each table. Instead of removing duplicates from the entire table, I can also remove duplicates using the primary key, since the primary key contains unique values. So using the customer key, I can select the customer key and remove duplicates instead of selecting the entire data set. Remove duplicates. Good. Now, how can we import this data back into Power BI? How we need to do this? In your own tab, just click on Close and Apply. This will import the data into Power BI. Now, when we go to the data view, you can now see the data is displayed in a tabular format. Now, don't forget to save this file. In case you stop, you can always come back to it. Just use your Ctrl+S to save the file. Now, I want us to go to our model view. Before we start talking about data modeling, I want us to go to the data model view, and the manage relationship option. I want us to select that. I want us to delete every relationship that has been created because I want us to be the one to create the relationship from scratch. So delete, of course. Close. We now have all our data displayed without a data model.